history and in virtually all cultures, there have been people who have had a mystical experience. Christian cultures call it an epiphany. The Japanese regard it as satori. But what really is a mystical experience? Today we've invited 3 guests from different faiths who have spent their lives trying to discover a way to describe the indescribable. Mata Lynn Barron has been initiated as a Naqshbandi Sufi. Lynn is a practicing mystic who teaches widely and leads a Sufi community in Southern California. Jonathan Omer-Man is a Jewish rabbi, teacher, and writer who helped create the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. Brother David Steindl-Rast has been a Benedictine monk for over 50 years, living for extended periods of time in total silence and contemplation. Welcome to a truly unique conversation, the mystical experience. Welcome all of you to Global Spirit. First, I want to express my deep gratitude for all of you agreeing to gather with us to explore this timeless phenomena of what's been called mystical experience. Brother David, I'd like to begin with you. I know you've spent your life in solitude and prayer on this spiritual path. Can you describe what that life has been like, and also the influence that studying other religions has had on your own faith?
Well, I've been a Benedictine monk now for 56 years, and in that time I've had many different experiences also of other religions. Originally, I was perfectly happy in my own monastery and my own tradition, and I still am. But after being in the monastery for about 12 years, I was sent out to have dialogue with Buddhist, Zen Buddhist monks who had come to the States at that time. And then I spent several years, actually, as it turned out, in training with Buddhist monks. And so that has influenced my spiritual life very much. But I came to discover that what's in the center of the Zen tradition, which is silence, really, wordless silence and presence in the now, is also at the center of our own Benedictine tradition. So it wasn't something new, it's just the emphasis is different. In our tradition, there's more emphasis on the word, and there's more emphasis on the silence.
Thank you. Mata Lynn, you've been described as an unlikely candidate for mystical experience. Can you tell us why you are unlikely and what your background was that brought you to this threshold?
Well, I was actually, I didn't have what you would call formal training. I had an interest in the truth, and I studied metaphysics for many years, and didn't really know anything about the idea of the mystical dimension of any tradition whatsoever. But in metaphysics, because you're looking for the truth that is behind everything, and because you're allowed to use all scriptures, holy books, you're kind of dipping into what I call this stream of consciousness that has been going on since the beginning. And so it was quite easy for me to see the truth in a way that wasn't just within one religion. But I had a life like everyone else. I worked, went to school, did different, so I didn't even know that what happened to me was even a possibility. So it was a surprise, to say the least.
Jonathan, as a Jewish rabbi, you come from a vast and profoundly deep history of mysticism in the Judaic tradition. And yet, you've also struck out on a unique path because you've been studying Sufism. Can you describe your relationship to mysticism?
Well, the Jewish tradition is, even of mystics, is of householders. And that is, we maintain interest in in large ranges of interest, including earning a living while we're on our path. Mysticism in the Jewish tradition is regarded, as opposed to Kabbalah, the kind of exoteric studies, is regarded as rather private. And there's a great deal of reticence about what you call the mystical experience. It's acknowledged, but the confessional discussion of it never is. I know in my classes I've always discouraged people from talking about their experiences because sometimes it becomes competitive or show off. And so for myself, I know what it's about, and I can describe it obliquely, but not explicitly.
Okay. Thank you. Brother David, can you give us some of the background in the Christian tradition of mysticism?
I think if we want to speak about the mystic experience, we should first say just exactly what we mean by it. And I think one could say it's an experience, first of all. That's important, that you're not just thinking about it or reading about it, but that it's something that you personally experience. And it is an experience of oneness, basically, of being in the present and being truly yourself and being one with all, limitless oneness, limitless belonging. That is what I mean when I speak about the mystic experience. And in the Christian tradition, that is triggered by, if I speak now the language of the tradition, by God speaking to you. God speaks. That is one of the central insights of the whole Bible. God speaks. So this is the deep insight. But God doesn't speak as a whisper in our ears or something like that. But the idea is that everything, every person, every situation is a word of God that is addressed to you. And that would be sort of the core of Christian experience, that God speaks to you through someone, something, or in some particular situation. To me, through music, through nature, sometimes through people, less so.
Yes. Jonathan, I see you nodding vigorously as Brother David is speaking. So does this make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. The idea of God speaking, I describe it in a slightly different way, that I can look at my path as beckoning. More than a quest from within, it's a beckoning towards, and inviting, and much of the work is a work of discrimination. When the beckoning isn't really the divine beckoning, but my projection onto other objects, other idolatries, seductions, and so it's very important for me to be discriminating in listening to the beckoning, and to be cautious about the experiences. Experiences, from my understanding, are not in themselves truth. They're signs. They're pointers. And nothing to hold on to, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Lynn, does it feel like a summons, a beckoning to you from your experience?
There's a practice that I do with my students. It's a prayer. It's a series of prayers, actually. And the first one is, Yahadi, open our hearts that we may hear thy voice that constantly cometh from within. And so they actually sit in meditation with this, and we all drop together into the heart. And this meditation that I do with people, it's called Muraqabah, and it's a watchful waiting state. Because it isn't, like you said, someone isn't whispering in your ear, but somewhere something is being revealed to you, and you know it in your heart. It's a different way of knowing than you have in your mind. And it's such a direct communication, and it's transforming.
Would you say it is simply the experience of a presence that you meet?
Yes, yes.
And you meet the presence mediated through something or someone or some situation, right?
Yeah. So, like I said, with my students, we actually do a practice to start this process. And then, you know, there's 3 other steps to it. But the first one is you have to have the awareness that this is a potential or a possibility for you. Because a lot of people don't think that it is.
Jonathan, is this word presence important to you?
Oh, absolutely. The presence is often veiled, and much of our work is in the attempt to turn the veils that conceal into veils that reveal. The divine is in every piece of bread, but beyond our possible comprehension. So it is a veil, and we can see the divine shimmering within it, with the contemplation on doing the blessing.
Beautiful.
I like your emphasis on blessing. Blessing is such an important word for me too. The blessing comes alive. Everything is blessing. Everything is blessing. St. Augustine says everything is grace. That means everything is blessing. So at every moment we receive blessing, but we have to pass it on so that it comes really alive.
Yes.
The religion historian Houston Smith has written, as other scholars have, that our major religions have actually been founded on mystical experience. If you look at the lives of Moses, Muhammad, and Jesus, with their revelations, their epiphanies, how does that happen? Jonathan?
Yes, if you look at Moses, he had the experience of the ineffable, with the burning bush almost wordless. And then he was told, go out into the world, liberate your people. And by the way, his response was, who, me? And God said, yes, you. So it is the experience immediately translated into action, sometimes even to political action. The Prophet Muhammad had to go to Mecca and to start organizing the tribes and placating and removing the idols. So it is both mystical but immediately translated. Unless it remains a private experience, it is translated into a social, sometimes political reality.
That's wonderful. Brother David, can you speak to the active aspect of mysticism?
Yes, I think that is the main difference between the run-of-the-mill of us and the great mystics whom we so admire. We shouldn't put them up on a pedestal as if they were a different kind of people. The mystic is not a different kind of human being, but every human being is a different kind of mystic, and we ought to become the kind of mystic who we are. But Abraham Maslow already explored what makes human beings particularly creative, particularly resilient, what makes great people, and came to the conclusion, to his own greatest surprise, that it was mystic experience. And he also actually wrote about it, and in psychological literature it didn't sit so well, so he changed the term from mystic experience to peak experience, because it's a peak of consciousness. But to the end of his life he insisted that what he called peak experience was indistinguishable from what the great mystics called mystic experience, or what we call mystic experience in the religious context. And the difference is that the great mystics allow this experience to flow into their lives, to inform their lives, to live accordingly. And many of us suppress it or forget it or don't take it seriously or whatever we do with it, because we feel that we need to keep everything under control. And the mystic experience, if it is anything, is a moment in which nothing is under control. St. Bernard of Clairvaux says, what we can grasp and control in that sense gives us knowledge, but what grabs us gives us wisdom. And the mystic experience is something that grabs us, takes hold of us.